The committee members and the audience, I'll start. I'm Jordan Hess, City Council.
Chris Lonsberry, Commissioner's Office.
John Engen, Mayor of the City of Missoula.
Debbie Johnston, I'm the representative from the Missoula City County Health Board.
Ben Nunnally, sitting in for Ed Taves, Montana Department of Transportation.
Corey Aldridge, sitting in for Don MacArthur, Missoula Urban Transportation District.
Okay, in the audience? Great, thank you. We have minutes from June 19th. I'd entertain a motion to approve or amend those. Okay, is there a second? Don't everyone jump to it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve the minutes? Any public comment? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? All right. We have three items of new business. The first is amendment number 4 to the 2018 to 2022 Transportation Improvement Program. And Tara will present that item. I wanted to note for the record that I spoke with Aaron Wilson last week about this item. We normally have a 30-day public comment period or public review period, and I authorized Aaron to waive that because this item is timely, and it's a minimal project using MDT funds within the MPO area. So if anyone has any questions, we can discuss that as well. Tara?
Tara Ossendorf, Transportation Planner with the MPO. I'm just going to go through a couple changes for Amendment 4 to the 2018 TIP. Starting out, STPU funds. Basically, the change to 2018 and 2022 funds reflect the $2.9 million that was added as a contingency buffer through the Urban Borrow Program. Basically, having this funding available will help to decrease the number of change orders as well as the number of amendments necessary. And so again, that's looking at the Russell Street, Idaho to Dakota section as well as the Dakota to Mount section. Moving forward to HSIP. Originally, the first memo that was drafted that you must have gotten on email had added a new project to the STPX category. However, the Stevens Orange Safety Improvement Project will actually remain in the HSIP with no major changes. That is the second project to the bottom there on the HSIP chart. And then additionally, a new project was added, the Safety Sign Striping Project, which originally we had it for about $280,000. It's a 6-sign safety project where 2 out of 6 locations are within the MPO planning boundary. However, that number was adjusted to just $70,000 to reflect just the signs that were within the boundary. 5307, 2018 numbers were just released, and so 2019 to 2022 shows that inflationary increase of 2%. For 5339 FTA, IT upgrades, 2020 funds were shifted to 2022. And then for buses and bus stop amenities, Mountain Line successful grant awards from the FTA will be used in combination with existing 5339 and CMAQ allocations to purchase 6 electric buses and the associated charging infrastructure, to upgrade ADA accommodations and passenger facilities at actually more than 70 locations, and finally to install uniform signage across every bus stop in our system. Additionally, telephone upgrades, 2021 funds were shifted just a year. And then 5310, paratransit vehicles, we removed a purchase of one 15-passenger low floor. $100,000 was removed from the 2021 cutaway purchase, and 2019 and 2020 funds were transferred a year respectively for the purchases of 2 accessible minivans, and 2 were removed. Did that cover the adjustment, the most recent adjustment as well? Was that
Yeah, I might just add as part of staff's presentation that what George was mentioning, the waiver of the 30-day notice period only applies to the signage project under HSIP. All the other amendments in this tip were noticed for 30 days. They've been out there. We just received that request late. They're trying to move forward on that project. It's a pretty minimal impact. It's highway safety funds. It's for some signage. It's not adding capacity, changing roadway configurations, or any of those things that would make it a major amendment or, in our opinion, requiring that 30 days. Plus, there's some time constraints in wanting to get that project going. So we did get those changes posted to the website, so it was noticed out there, just not for the full 30 days.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Any questions or discussion or motion on this item? Chris.
So I would move to adopt the recommendations.
Okay, the motion is in order. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Any discussion on the items? Or any public comment? Okay, all those in favor of the TIP amendment number 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So next we have the draft federal fiscal year 2019 Unified Planning Work Program and federal fiscal year 2019 through 2023 Transportation Improvement Program for anticipated adoption in August.
All right, thanks. So, again, Aaron Wilson, the Transportation Division, and typically we bring these updates to TTAC and TPCC in July just to get some preliminary comments and feedback, and then we'll have the final drafts back through for adoption in August. We're running a little bit behind in terms of having those drafts drafted. So this is mostly kind of a big picture update on these two documents, and then we'll have the drafts again for comment, the specific documents in August. So I'll just run through some of the changes that we're looking at making to both the Transportation Improvement Program and the UPWP. So we did receive our letter with the funding, PL funds that we would have available for fiscal year 2019. It was an increase of about 1% over the fiscal year 18 funds. We have about 741,000 unobligated PL funds. That doesn't include the increase in, or the additional funds from 2019, and I think that number may be a little bit in flux based on what we're spending on other plans and staffing for the remainder of fiscal year 2018. But generally, in that ballpark, that's what we'll have available plus the 2019. There are a couple of considerations as we craft how we're going to spend those funds over the next several years. There is a potential rescission coming from the federal government in 2020, so unobligated funds may be subject to that rescission. Those happen periodically. As far as I know, they're programmed into those funding bills that the Congress passes. So that's one consideration. There's also the fact that Bozeman and or Helena, or both of them, may become MPOs after the 2020 census. So it won't happen immediately, but based on population of those urbanized areas, we may be looking at 2 additional MPOs in the state. That might affect our PL fund allocations. I mean, there's limited amount of money coming into Montana for planning, long-range transportation planning. So those are some things we're trying to factor. We don't want too many unobligated funds going into a potential rescission, but we also don't want to have no unobligated funds because we may have a lower PL allocation in the future. So we're trying to balance those, do the planning that we want to do, but be conscious that we may lose some of that money under a couple of different scenarios. So we'll continue to work with MDT as we find out more. It won't be for a year or two, but trying to think and plan strategically for that. So major changes to the work program. I shouldn't say they're major changes, but changes that we'll be making in fiscal year 2019. We'll be increasing the amount of hours and funding for the Community Transportation Safety Plan update. So Dave will have some information on that. We're hoping to kick that off in the next couple of months and really start ramping up that process. We'll also add in the LRTP update. It feels like we just adopted that plan, but lo and behold, we have a new LRTP update that will that we'll need to have adopted by 2020. So we're going to start kicking that off probably next late spring, early summer. So there will be some hours and consultant fees related to that LRTP update. We've also are looking at separating the travel demand model update, consultant fees and hours out from the LRTP update within the UPWP. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is it gives us a little bit more flexibility in timing and trying to think about getting that model update done before we really start off the LRTP process. And it gives us some more flexibility in terms of consultants, because we could pick one consultant who has a lot of experience with the model to do just that process, and then have another consultant that maybe offers more on the planning side. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility and allows us to do more with the model independent of the long-range plan update. And then we also have some possible additional funds for corridor studies, like if there's additional funds needed for the Brooks corridor planning or other studies that might come up over the course of the year. So there's some dollar amounts for those particular studies. For the TIP, the 2019 to 2023 TIP, we did issue a call for projects in June. We received one comment or request from a member of the public to do something to address the railroad trestle going into East Missoula. I feel like we hear about that pretty much every year. And I think there was some interest. People saw the construction that was going on there with the railroad adding the additional track and thought, oh, this might be a great opportunity to actually fix that. But there is no funding currently identified that could do that, particularly in the time frame of this TIP. So we've taken that comment, we add it to the list of people who want to see that addressed. We'll continue looking for funding, but there's no identified source currently to get that into the TIP. We'll continue the funding projections that we have in the 2018 Amendment number 4 that was just adopted. We'll likely get some updates from MDT between now and August to update for 2023 and some of those future years. And then we're recommending adjusting CMAQ funding for Missoula in Motion to add in an annual 3% increase. We did this last year for some other programs like Mr. TMA and the Bike PED program, just so that those programs can keep up, particularly Missoula in Motion. There's staff involved in that funding. Those staff costs go up every year, and so if it doesn't increase annually, you just get less and less available for programming. So that 3% is anticipated to keep up with essentially inflation, and so those programs can continue to operate at the same level that they are today. And then last, we're adding in the performance measures. That's also included as part of the TIP amendment that was just adopted. This is just a reference to those federally mandated performance measures and the targets, and the MPO is moving forward with, or agreed to support the state targets. So there's a brief narrative section at the beginning of the TIP that will essentially say how the projects in the TIP help us move forward in achieving those targets. It's a pretty minor change, but it's, again, a federal requirement that we do include that in the TIP. So with those general updates, our target adoption is August 21st at the next TPCC meeting. We'll have the draft documents ready for review, hopefully by the end of this week. Those legal ads in the public notice will be going out, and we'll have them available for comment and review. And then the goal is to have them reviewed by MDT, FHWA, FTA by September 30th, 2018, so that we're ready to go for the October 1 start of the federal fiscal year. And that's all I have, unless anyone has comments or questions or suggestions on how we...
Mayor Engen?
Thank you. A couple questions, Aaron.
Sure.
So with regard to the potential for two new metropolitan planning organizations, so my experience with federal programs that are based on population, there ends up being a pro rata share. I'm thinking about CDBG at home in particular. So does the pie remain the same size, or is there additional allocation based on the number of MPOs in a state?
I don't know for sure. I want to say that there may be some additional allocation, but I think the anticipation is there may be not. It's not. Okay. You know, they're not giving us a proportional increase to the number of MPOs, and so there is that chance that there could be essentially less of a pie available for Missoula. But it's something that we're trying to have continue conversations with MDT and understand what that might mean. And again, we might not know until 2021 or 2022 what that implication would be.
Thanks. And then with regard to the LRTP, so given the robust nature of the work that we've put into the existing LRTP, do we have any capacity to do what I'm going to call a light version of the plan?
Yeah, I think that's how we're approaching this, that it won't be as big of a total rewrite of the plan. We'll continue with, we don't want to completely redo it every 4 years, so we'll continue with the plan we have, do some basic updates. We'll have to do some updates on the projections and the funding. I think there are some other pieces that we could add some more to, particularly around autonomous vehicles or changing technologies. We're hoping to add that into the CTSP related to safety, but just have a bigger discussion of what does that mean for transportation in the region, or start to get ahead of it, or try to catch up a little. So yeah, I think it won't be as robust, if you will, as the last update, but maybe trying to at least get started sometime next summer maybe, so we have that year to go through the process.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Okay. Anyone from the audience want to weigh in on anything? Come on up, Kevin.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Kevin Davis, a Missoula citizen. Wear various hats in the community, like we all do, and I get to work with a lot of you on various projects. And by the way, congratulations to Aaron Wilson for filling the big shoes of Missoula Transportation Planner. Missoula's lucky to have him. Speaking just to the slides just presented, I think just from a general comment, there's a group of citizens that is interested in engaging more with this committee and the city, just on the big picture of Missoula transportation. A lot of us that have been here for many years, me for a couple of decades, see some opportunities of ways we can go about things a little bit differently. For, the way we've addressed transportation the last 30 years might need to be done differently the next 30 years. Just because of, growth factors, economic development opportunities, moving people around Missoula will continue to be a challenge, as it is for the rest of the country. And I think we all love Missoula enough to make it work, and there's opportunities there. So with regard to TIP and the Transportation Safety Plan upcoming, I saw a public comment about the East Missoula train trestle was the only comment perhaps submitted, and I would add to that Reserve Street in that corridor needs some serious attention. Coming up to this meeting today, I looked up and down Reserve Street, and there's traffic backed up as far as you can see. There was a pedestrian hit yesterday on North Reserve. There's crashes almost on a daily event through that corridor. So as Aaron knows, I'm leading up a project starting with Reserve Street and then propagating out from there. But I think if we all factor in necessary improvements to that corridor, that will play to our benefit. So I would recommend Reserve Street corridor be added there. I also saw Brook Street corridor, which certainly needs attention, but as crash data and crash rate data should support, we all need to give more attention to Reserve Street. So Jordan Hess and the mayor has my contact info. Happy to engage more, and thanks for your work.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Anyone else care to comment? Okay, great. Anything else from the committee? All right. So our final item is to review and provide comment on the draft Community Transportation Safety Plan schedule and scope of work.
Hi everyone, Dave Gray, Missoula MPO. Just a quick update on the status of the CTSP update. Robert Petcha out of Helena has been hired as the consultant, and we've been working with them to refine the scope and the timeline for the plan. We hope to get the contract through City Council this week. Is that right? Yeah. It's up for, we got to refer all the City Council to get the contract through. You can see our timeline up on the screen. There's also a link to it on the agenda. We have a number of meetings, primarily for the Transportation Safety Advisory Committee, which will be the people like emergency services, law enforcement, public works, Buckle Up Montana, DUI Task Force, all those people that we are going to be identifying through this process. And then 2 major public meetings, one for the public visioning and then the second one for the safety summit. However, all those TSAC meetings are technically a public meeting, so nobody should feel like they can't come to any one of those. Then we're hoping to have the final document ready by the end of April next spring. So the final cost that came in was $113,000 for the plan. And as Aaron mentioned, we will be including a few new things. One, we need to include all the federal performance measures for fatal and serious crashes and crash rates and cost. Then we need to look at the emphasis areas. We have impaired driving, unrestrained driving, and intersection crashes identified in the current plan. We're going to be reevaluating those emphasis areas and adding some if we need to, and then looking at the strategies that we'll need to implement in order to tackle those. So all of that's a pretty big bunch of stuff to get through. However, we will be adding the emerging technologies for infrastructure improvements, signal timings, what kind of technologies out there for signal intersection improvements, then vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, and autonomous vehicles, all of that will be approached in this plan. We're not going to come up with any necessary recommendations, but we are going to have a baseline understanding of where the technology is right now. What's it capable of now, and what are they hoping for in the future? So in 5 years, when we update this plan, hopefully there's an improvement, that kind of a thing. And I'm willing to take any questions you may have about this stuff.
Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone from the audience want to add anything to this? Okay. That's all of our formal agenda items. Are there any announcements or closing comments? Mayor Engen?
Thank you. If you'll indulge me for just a moment, I wanted to introduce Jorge Ferreira, who's visiting us all the way from Colombia. Jorge is a Humphrey Fellow. He and more than a dozen of his compatriots from around the world descended upon the University of Montana for language immersion, and then they will, depending on their area of expertise, disperse throughout the country at learning institutions and businesses and NGOs to learn more about how we do things, and with any luck, we might learn a few things from those fellows as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge Jorge, and he's going to every meeting I go to, so he's living an exciting life. La vida loca.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome. Anything else? Aaron?
So one update that I think is worth mentioning for anyone here or watching at home. We do have a grand opening or ribbon cutting tomorrow for the Golden Spike portion of the Bitterroot Trail. So this is the last section being completed between essentially downtown Missoula and Hamilton. It's part of the MRL Park and that section between North and South Avenues. That is open. There's a dedicated bike signal through that intersection of essentially South and Johnson for cyclists to get through. We're already actually seeing a fair amount of traffic on that trail, even though it's not officially ribbon cut open yet. I think it's about 200 or 300 cyclists a day are going through there. But that event is tomorrow at 9 a.m. is the ribbon cutting, and then there will be, some rides through there. We'll do some education on how to use that bike-specific signal so that people know how they can get through, what to look for, where to be positioned to make sure that they get that signal activated and all of those things. So I think it'll be a pretty exciting last piece it's a small piece, but it's the last one to connect that entire trail section. So I think it's a pretty important moment to note, and hopefully everyone can be there and take a little bike ride and see how it works.
Thanks, Aaron. And it's worth noting that that's the first bicycle-only signal in the state, and a good innovative accomplishment by city and MDT. Okay, without anything further, we will be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.